Well, new report shines a light on the magnitude of President Obama's drone campaign in Pakistan and its impact on civilians there. The report is from NYU and Stanford Law School. It's based on over 130 in-depth interviews with victims of drones and Pakistani government officials. Its findings raise eyebrows, to say the least. The report shows that drone strikes have killed more civilians than American officials have admitted. It also reveals the pervasive anxiety instilled in those who live where drone strikes occur. Residents describe the constant buzzing above and the fear of knowing that a strike can happen anytime, yet not know when. Well, filmmaker Robert Greenwald details some of the trauma in his documentary entitled Living Under Drones.
One of the things we found is that there are entire communities who live in areas where drones are flying overhead 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at times. And these people don't know when those drones will strike. They don't know who they will strike.
Well, to discuss this more, I'm joined now by John Amick, the campaign director for Brave New Foundation's War Costs. John, welcome. So this report says more civilians were killed by drone strikes than U.S. officials have admitted. What do you think about these findings?
This report is amazing. Brave New Foundation produced this video to amplify its findings, and it was groundbreaking in a sense that they did get access to a notoriously difficult place to access the FATA region of Pakistan, and in particular North Waziristan. And to talk to people on the ground about what it's like was tremendous. About civilian counts, the government has said it's exceedingly rare that civilians have been killed as a result of these drone strikes. They even say, they put the number in single digits, as a matter of fact, which is absurd based on a host of different organizations that follow these things. Probably the most reliable information comes from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, which this report shows probably has the best statistics. They take into account local news outlets of all kinds, not just the military or not just the U.S. government spin on things. The report shows that it's incredibly difficult to ascertain what the U.S. government and, for that matter, the Pakistani government does after a strike to figure out how many people have died, who they were. Oftentimes, bodies are mutilated beyond recognition. So even if they did have these efforts to find who was there and what happened, there's no guarantee that they would know who anyone is based on the devastation and destruction.
Okay, so we're seeing that the numbers don't add up. Do you think that the numbers were intentionally skewed to sway public perception of the drone campaign in Pakistan?
I can't say that it was a coordinated campaign. I'm sure that the fact that the U.S. government can control so much information in this aspect, one, because this is a remote area of the world, and two, because much too much reporting on this issue takes into account what the government tells reporters. Reporters aren't scrutinizing what the government is telling them. They often cite anonymous officials. And I think that it's a prime example, I think, of media just regurgitating whatever the government tells them for a variety of issues, understandably, but at the same time, there has not been the kind of critical reporting that should happen on something of such a magnitude. Another problem is how the government classifies people in this region. Any male above the age of 18 is considered a militant. So therefore, they don't take into account who that person was, that they were actually an innocent civilian. There are all sorts of problems with the accounting issues.
And beyond the death toll, John, what this report also reveals is the effect that this is taking on living residents over in Pakistan. This constant state of dread and fear and anxiety that is breeded by having these drones constantly humming up above. What about that part of the report?
Again, if there's anything groundbreaking about this report, it is the fact that they were able to access so many people in this very, very tough region to get to. The sheer horror and terror that the interviewees, the people that live on the ground, relay to the researchers is unbelievable. The fact that their communities are completely fractured. People are afraid to take their children to school for fear of drone strikes. The community bond is broken down where There's widespread mistrust between people in North Waziristan, worried about whether local scores might be settled via drone strikes. If someone has a beef with someone, they might hand them a CIA. This is what the fear on the ground is, that people are working with the CIA. And so basically, everyone is very wary of one another. The PTSD symptoms are tremendous. Again, if anything, this report shows what has not been reported before, and it's the effect, the voice of the people on the ground there comes through unlike anything else unlike any other study or reporting that's been done.
And with this voice coming through, what we're also hearing is that the people of Pakistan their public opinion of the U.S. is dwindling. Of course, when we're seeing this anxiety that's being bred on the ground as a result of this drone program, ultimately then, does this show that the program is counterproductive?
Well, the report also goes into how these strikes have radicalized so many people. Talking with the folks on the ground, and the interviewees, they say that so many of their relatives, friends, people they know are increasingly angry about these things, and rightfully so. I think in Pakistan, drone strikes, or at least the United States of America has something like a 75% disapproval rating. And it's not completely, 100% disapproval, because there are some factions that do believe that the strikes are valid, but the vast majority find it an affront to their national sovereignty, and that brings in a host of other legal issues. But the fact of the matter is that they're widely unpopular. It's incredibly disruptive to the local society. Many innocent civilians are dying, and there's not enough honest debate, much less action in the United States, to counter this program.
Okay, and I do want to bring up what advocates of drones say. Proponents of drones say they allow the U.S. to precisely hit its targets while limiting civilian casualties. Does this report disprove that argument?
It certainly challenges it to a high degree. I mean, I think that, again, that's classic government spin, and I think what we're fed in the United States and really throughout the Western world is that this is a pinpoint. There's pinpoint accuracy to drone strikes that is very targeted. But even by the government's own two-faced accusations about who is targeted, how they are targeted, who's a militant, what the militant actually means to the government, there are too many contradictions for this to be true. So it's definitely worrisome.
Okay, and we don't have too much time left, but I do want to ask you, will this report, could it put pressure on the administration to change the way it's conducting the drone campaign?
That's hard to say. I mean, they've ignored a lot of other, there is some solid reporting on this going on, and they've ignored that to a certain extent, and they still hide behind secrecy, saying that they don't have to give legal justification for all this. But the hope is that there is dialogue. I would urge people to go to WarCosts.com to watch the video, to spread it around. We're on Facebook at WarCosts, Facebook.com/WarCosts, and at WarCosts on Twitter. We're having a debate about this with our hashtag #UnderDrones, if you'd like to talk about it on Twitter. And again, the hope is that even if the government doesn't take give enough attention to this report, that citizens of the United States and all over the world can press them to start a dialogue.
All right, John, really appreciate you coming on the show. And that was John Amick, the campaign director for Brave New Foundation's War Costs.